Full week for Donald Trump's new leadership team, and even some more changes are afoot in the campaign. Stephen Bannon and Kellyanne Conway are now at the helm, but will that be enough to help pick up this campaign that has been sliding in the polls and turning off certain Republicans? To that end, they are now working more closely with the RNC and for its much-needed ground game in pivotal swing states. Joining me now, the man tasked with doing just that, RNC national spokesman Sean Spicer, also a strategist who is now working here in New York out of Trump campaign headquarters. So, Sean, explain, was it the RNC's idea or the Trump campaign's idea that came up with this?
This isn't a new concept. For the last several cycles, as we head into the home stretch, key components of the RNC integrate with the campaign. We've been doing it for months already. We've had a big footprint in their digital operation, the fundraising operation, the political operation. And as we head into the final 78 days, the idea was the messaging and the strategy as far as what we want those key themes to be for the final 78 days. Let's get some folks in New York on a more regular basis. So I'll be going back and forth. But this is actually pretty normal for the final stretch of a presidential campaign.
Okay, so ground game-wise, let's talk about what's coming out of Ohio. Donald Trump is in Ohio, in Akron. I believe that he just landed there. But the new Monmouth polling has Clinton at 43, Trump at 39, Johnson at 10. Also, interesting side note, 38% of people there polled think more highly of John Kasich for not endorsing Donald Trump. So specifically for Ohio, what is the ground game and the unique purpose of the RNC working with Trump on that?
Well, we've had folks in the field for the last 4 years. One of the lessons that we took out of 2012 is that it isn't something you can parachute into. We've had people on the ground in battleground states like Ohio and Florida that have been there for 4 years, making voter contact, finding out what those key button issues are that people are persuaded by, how much of a Republican are, what propensity they are, they're likely to vote, do they come out often, do they vote early. And so that 4-year investment is what's going to pay off in a place like Ohio or Florida, where at the end of it, in a close race, a good ground game is worth, 3-4 points.
Does it seem, though, as if this team, the Trump team, is literally parachuting in to certain swing states, whether it's Florida or Ohio, tomorrow off to Austin and Texas, and leaving the heavy lifting to what's already been established by the RNC?
Well, that's how it should be, frankly. I mean, again, look at where Hillary Clinton is. We've had more people in battleground states than she has. She's parachuting people in at this point. The key, and I think what Obama did well in his last re-elect, was he kept a lot of people in those states. They were there to organize over a 4-year period, continue to make voter contact and voter persuasion. We were able to replicate that as a party. So it benefits not just the top of the ticket, but up and down the ticket. So a guy like Rob Portman, Marco Rubio, Kelly Ayotte are all going to benefit from those 4-year investments that we've been able to make in both the ground and data. As we go to those houses, as we communicate with those voters, we can append the voter file with all sorts of things in terms of what are the issues that they think are important. Do they use a landline? Does someone speak Spanish? What are the key people and influencers that are in their lives? All of those kind of things can be appended to a voter file to really understand what makes a voter tick.
All right, so one thing that's getting a lot of headlines, especially not just the changes from the Trump team, but some of the language that we heard from Kellyanne Conway over the weekend about Trump on immigration policy, the use of deportation forces. Is this a flip-flop or mixed messaging coming from the campaign?
No, look, I think Donald Trump talked this morning very forcefully about the fact that his position remains the same. But what Kellyanne was doing is very clear, which was to say he's going to be addressing this, as he has with several other policy issues the last couple of days, in detail. And so that she was not trying to get ahead of the boss and say, I'm going to tell you are. He is planning to lay out on immigration, as he did with taxes and national security, a very detailed plan to make sure that we understand how we can fix a very broken problem. But what he has said is that we need a fair, firm, and humane program to deal with the folks that are in this country illegally.
But when it comes to the immigration policy, does he have one for the federal minimum wage, also for the Muslim ban that he proposed? Folks with the fiancé visa, like the woman who married the shooter in San Bernardino.
I think he's going to address immigration in a very comprehensive way and talk about what's needed for our economy and families, frankly. How do we address the problems that we have now, but also how do we fix it so that it's not a problem that we have to deal with again in 10, 20 years?
But with less than 80 days to go, should we have some of these answers already from the standard bearer of the GOP?
Well, again, I think this has been a very unconventional election. He's going to give them to him, but the voters are going to be fully informed. I think if you look at the last week, he gave 4 very detailed speeches about 4 very specific subjects and problems that this country faces. He's going to continue to do that. And I think what's happening is that we have a lot of people, pundits and otherwise, who say this is the timetable that we expect. He's doing it on his own timetable. There's plenty of time for the voters to scrutinize it, understand it, and he's capturing at a moment when, frankly, most voters are tuning into the election for a very prolonged period period of time to make sure that they understand the contrast that exists.
Meanwhile, if folks are just tuning in now, and certainly minority communities that may have gotten a headline from Trump's most recent speech about what the hell do you have to lose to voting for me, talking about the black community in America, does that satisfy the RNC and that type of language, especially after the autopsy that you guys produced in 2013?
Right. I think one of the things that we rightly recognized after 2012 is this party needs to grow. We have lost basically 4 presidential elections in a row. If you look at the popular vote, we need to grow as a party. We need to be going places that we haven't, whether it's the African-American community, the community, the Hispanic community. So we need to go out there and talk about why we as a party, our values, our social and conservative values are better for the American people and offer better solutions. So that being said, I think what you've seen over the last week and what you'll continue to see is Donald Trump talk about why he wants to earn the vote of all Americans, particularly those minority groups that you mentioned.
So when it comes to those numbers, though, polling-wise, they're in single digits in certain places.
Yeah.
How much of a concern is that to the RNC?
Well, they've been in a single digits. McCain got 4% of the black vote. Romney got 6% of the black vote. We got 3% of the female black vote last cycle. We've got to do better. No question about it. And I think, look,
but Insanity's doing the same thing over and over again.
And I get it. And I think
so if you recognize that from 2012, why would you allow that?
Well, I think when you look at the playing field of where our primary was, it wasn't in a lot of these areas, and there was a very competitive, prolonged primary. Now that we've shifted to a general election, we've got to recognize that those communities that probably didn't get the attention that they deserved in the primary process will. And I think you saw that commitment over the last 48 hours of Donald Trump going and talking to these groups, talking about how he wants to earn their vote, how his policies and solutions are going to help lift them up and move them forward.
Arizona Senator Jeff Flake had said over the weekend he would prefer the RNC put its resources financially behind down-ballot candidates. Evan McMullin, who's the conservative independent candidate for president, circulated a memo today that I got a hold of from a source that was talking about the collapse of Donald Trump and thinks that the RNC may look to him as a candidate potentially if Donald Trump were to step aside for any reason. Does he concern you, McMullin, and would you consider him?
No. Look, Donald Trump got more votes than any Republican in previous history. He is our nominee, as stated. That being said, let's put to rest the next myth. There's no way to decouple the top of the ticket from the bottom of the ticket. It's all one ticket. In order for the down-ballot candidates to do well, you need a strong, healthy, vibrant top of the ticket. It doesn't work any other way. And frankly, resources that we have when we go and talk about that voter contact and that data, it's all linked together. You can't separate it. It is all one team, and we're all going to succeed, maintain those majorities in the House and the Senate, and win back the White House this November.
All right, Sean, welcome to New York. I'm sure we're going to be seeing you a lot through September.